All right, I'm going to be digging into a 2011 Yamaha Grizzly 550 clutch assembly. I've got a handful of the clutch cover bolts already off. They're a 10mm bolt, and there is a mess of them going around this clutch cover here. You don't have to remove all the plastics to replace a belt, replace a clutch, or do anything. And a lot of times, if you just have water, you can see here on the bottom of this cover is a drain plug. Take a pair of pliers and pull that drain plug. It's got a rubber gasket securing that in there, so it may be a little bit challenging, but grab a pair of pliers, pull that plug, see if there's any water sitting in there. There shouldn't ever be any water, oil, anything sitting in there. If there is, you've got major problems. If it's water, just drain that out. I suggest pulling the cover, letting it dry out really good. Maybe take your belt, wipe it down. Your brake lever here, you don't have to pull that off as well. You may have to create some slack in there so you can push it down farther. A lot of times, if you've got your brake set right, it'll only move about that far, and it makes it a little bit difficult. But if you loosen your clutch lever up there, or excuse me, your brake lever up there, you'll be able to push it down a little bit farther and get this cover off. So we've got 10mm. Again, I told you I removed a whole bunch of them already just to save some time, but I've got just two of them, I think, holding this up, three of them holding this on here. And push the brake lever down, we're able to just take that clutch cover and pull it right off there. So there's your clutch. This is called your primary up here. This is called your secondary back here. And then we've got a housing here, kind of a cage with 10mm bolts all the way around it. And there's 4 of these. These are longer than your clutch cover bolts, so keep in mind which ones are, just don't get them mixed up. And there's one. We generally use an impact socket for all of them, but there is one back in the kind of by this brake lever that hard to get an impact socket on, so you can see the difference in the size of bolts there. So just make sure the right ones go back in there. Then this cage will actually just slide off. It's fairly simple to come off. There's a bearing in back here. You want to make sure that's good. If you are if your clutch seizes, sometimes it's because of that bearing in there that can cause some serious problems. So make sure that's in great condition. Make sure this, your primary clutch here, make sure this isn't grooved. Make sure there's no debris stuck on there. Make sure it's smooth and ready to go. Now we've got a 22mm socket, and these are just regular threaded bolts. So there's nothing special you got to do to pull these. And an impact will take them off. Impact's a lot easier. Otherwise, if you're trying to use a socket or a wrench, you're going to be spinning your entire clutch system around. And then this one, it's a little bit easier to do this with a deep well, but you can do it with a regular socket. There we go. Going back on, well, I'll show you going, well, no, I won't, because I'm going to disassemble this clutch and show you how to do that there. So I'm not going to put it on right now. We're going to rebuild the clutch at some point, but to go back on, what you do is take a bolt same size as your clutch cover bolts and run them in here. Okay, you do that, and what happens is, and I'll pull this clutch off and show you, but you run this in and you run it in. If you use that bolt, you run it in until the threads are no longer shown. Now what you're going to do is that's going to able to pull this clutch or this belt down farther into the clutch, and that's going to allow you to push this clutch on all the way. If you see here, this your clutch bolt is grooved and you've got a washer on there, and you want to make sure that this bolt or this nut goes all the way on. You want to make sure that your splines are exposed. So then what I do, after I run that bolt in, I might even run it in a little bit farther. All right, it's in for a good distance now. Now I take and I push this belt in like this. That way I'm able to push this clutch on all the way. You want splines exposed here, and that is essential. You have to have splines exposed here. Otherwise, what happens is, if you don't have this bolt in there, it's sucking this belt too far this way, and it's not allowing you to push this this plate on all the way, and your splines are not exposed. You put this on and you tighten it up. That's pinching this plate right here on this clutch between the shaft and between the nut, and then as soon as you put this and go down the road with this belt, it'll do this with your belt, and your nut will spin off of there every single time. So if you do not do what I just said right there, you will destroy a clutch, and you'll destroy your cage here, your clutch here. A lot of times your secondary clutch will be destroyed, obviously your belt, and worst case is your crankcase as well. So make sure you run this bolt in, push your belt down like that, push this all the way in so your splines are exposed. Make sure your washer and your nut are on there, and then you spin all the way on. Keep pressure on this plate while you're doing this. Take that impact then, and always use thread lock on these threads, because you do not want this loosening up. And I had to pull my socket off there, so I'm just going to double check. It is crucial that is splines are exposed. Then you run that in. Make sure your finger's not behind there when you run that in with an impact. And tighten this all the way down with the impact too. So that is removing that clutch, and then that's actually installing it as well, because I'm not going to do that in this video again. So we've got your primary clutch pulled off here, and a lot of times if this clutch has been rebuilt previously, there's going to be some oil kind of splattered all the way around here. That's not the end of the world. You can see there's a little bit of residue around here. Because this clutch does have grease in there, it does kind of splatter. That's what that is, and some belt dust as well. But we've got your clutch off there, and I'm going to show you how to dig into this clutch. Now, it's going to be a little bit challenging, the angle that you are, but okay, we've got your clutch off there. It's holding it down this way. And take a Phillips screwdriver. You're going to make sure you've got a good bed on here. And if you've got a place where you can put this clutch in a vise, you've got a mess of Phillips screws here. You can see that there. And you want to make sure you loosen all those. They've got a brass washer in behind there. And then what we're going to be looking at is rollers in behind here, and some weights. And a lot of times these clutches need rebuilt. So what happens is those rollers become out of round, those weights start getting dug into. These are very, very small Phillips, so just be careful pulling them apart. It's essential that all of them are there going back together. Just want to make sure you don't get in there and bend it up. You can use a little bit of pressure to pry against it. There's just a seal in there that kind of keeps it from coming off. And you can hear it when you're lifting up on here. Doing this is fairly flexible, so you want to make sure that you don't bend it, but if you do a little bit, just kind of going around the circle there, you just pop it off right like that, and then you've got an O-ring in behind there, and that's what was sealing us up there. So make sure that seal goes back in that groove when you're going back together. Now, here's what the clutch looks like. The rollers are in behind here. So what we're going to do now is I like to lay this flat again like that and pull this straight up like that. You can see all the grease that's coming up with it. These pieces here will come off. So that's why I like to pull it straight up just like that. So you want to make sure that those stay on there. If you're ordering a rebuild kit, those will come with it. So I'm going to set this here. Hopefully that doesn't fall off. It's not a great spot for it. And then I'm going to show you, these are your rollers. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 rollers inside of this clutch. So you want to make sure that they're round. And also down behind the roller then, it can be extremely grooved. It's cupped because these roll up in there, and that's what's creating the movement of your four-wheeler. So you want to make sure that those rollers are round, make sure that it's not grooved too bad in there. So going back together then, just make sure that those spacers are all in there how they're supposed to be, those weights, and slide it right down in there. And then those rollers will sit all the way down in there, so you push this on, and then you take I like to take the O-ring off of this and actually put it on this. Just a little bit easier there. All right, just press your plate back in, line those holes up, put all your screws back in, that clutch is ready to go. So that is the primary clutch. And I'm gonna show you quick why we've got this primary clutch off. A little bit more what I'm talking about of having those splines shown. So that when you put this bolt in here like that, it's allowing that belt to be sucked in farther. And then when you push your belt together, it's allowing this clutch to slide in because this is tapered here. It's allowing this clutch to slide in farther all the way back there so that these splines are exposed when you're putting that front clutch back on. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this quick. It's easy enough to do because I didn't put these bolts in. Obviously that needs done, but I just wanna show you that because this is so important. I don't know how many times guys don't do this and create some major problems. And hopefully you caught that. I obviously didn't. We got this centerpiece here that slides in. And now if I were to take and slam this up at this point right now, those bearings would go everywhere. So, or the rollers in there, if I were to tip it sideways and push this in, those rollers would fall out of place. So I like to always keep this down, and the amount of grease that's in there, well, it's not gonna slide all over the place. I could actually tip it now, but if I were to put weight on this and tip it over, those rollers would roll out of place. So take now, put it on there. Those splines are exposed because I pushed down on here. Washer, nut, go all the way on with it. Don't forget thread lock, torque it down, and you're all set. Obviously that nut will be on. Now when you get that done, I'll slide this on quick. Okay, when that one's on there, you can, when both of them are tightened down like they're supposed to be, run this bolt out. And you'll see when we start spinning this belt will sit up here farther. And you can just push it out like that. And it'll run back in. And you could actually start the four-wheeler up and it would do the same thing. But you can see it's working itself out there. And now there's complete tension on that belt. So you're all set. Thanks for watching. More how-to videos on this Grizzly 550. Check my channel. We'll do valve adjustment. We'll completely disassemble this four-wheeler. So keep your eye out for those. Thanks for watching.